remember you was conflicted, misusing your influence, buying weird-ass license games for PSP. Sometimes I did the same.
Shaolin Showdown. Oh yeah, it's Shaolin Showdown on PSP. This is definitely gonna be as epic and exciting as the cartoon. Oops, it's poo-poo. Licensed video games, tie-ins, and whatnots are a bit of a sore subject for me. I remember when I signed away my basic human rights and told my father that if he bought me Avatar The Last Airbender on PS2, I would give him 30 foot scratch sessions. I'm not okay, nor will I ever be. The PSP was a handheld home to a bunch of these licensed games, many of which have gone forgotten or at least better off not remembered. But junk is my specialty, and sometimes you will find something worth playing. Faithful viewer, have you ever wanted a racing game where you could play as Shrek riding the love child of Appa and the chicken dinosaur from Star Wars Episode 3? And yes, I know his name is Boga, get a hobby. Well, here it is, power to the players, it's Shrek Smash and Crash Racing. Yeah! Woohoo! Alright, I know what you're thinking, but hear me out. I actually had a fun time with this one. At first glance, it does appear like your typical kart racer, but there's enough going on here that I feel like it does a good job of establishing its own identity and really playing up the whole Shrek theme. Every race here is super chaotic and unexpectedly fast-paced. Like, look at Shrek here. It looks like he could barely handle this sexy swamp opera. It does a good job at feeling nice to control, but somehow a tad unwieldy. Instead of drifting, you can jump, allowing you to leap over obstacles and make sharp turns. Another cool thing is every racer gets an attack that they can just use whenever. Like Shrek has this big-ass club he can just bludgeon people with like a true ogre. Part of the initial challenge with these kind of licensed racers is finding out what each item does and what's its Mario Kart equivalent. Like, you get this goose that acts as the red shell, but the game does a good job at introducing some true Shrek content, like crop dusting everyone behind you. Some of these tracks are pretty well designed. My favorite is the Jack and the Beanstalk one, which Nintendo would later rip off in Mario Kart 8, so there you go. We've come full circle. I also just love playing as Donkey riding Dragon. It's true love, and I'm a slut for any PSP Dragon content.
I changed my mind, go back.
Remember Aragon, the book? Here's the game on PSP. For those unacquainted, Aragon was a young adult fantasy novel written by a 15-year-old, and a lot of my classmates wanted to be this kid. I mean, he got to live their dream, which is like whatever, but then he stole my dream, getting my novel turned into a shitty live-action movie into a shitty PSP game.
I love video games. I think video games are a great, new form of art and a great way of telling stories that we haven't had before, and I love the experience. I'm a big fan of
Aragon on PSP. Yeah, it's a movie game. Chances are it's gonna be bad, but what really makes this one sting is there are pockets of potential and cool ideas here. I mean, it's a handheld dragon game. You can fly around, you can pick up cattle and chomp on them and gush blood while you do it. You can rain hellfire on enemies. You can pick up boulders and just hurl them on structures. I mean, there's some genuinely fun stuff you can do, but it's all barred behind this extreme clunkiness in a game that's very cumbersome to control. Like, you can launch bolts of fire at enemies, but it's really difficult to do this with any precision while flying, so half the time it's just easier to swoop down and pick enemies up. Later, Aragon will ride your back with his fat young adult protagonist ass, which lets you shoot arrows at enemies, which does make things a bit easier, but again, controlling all these mechanics simultaneously hardly ever feels right. There's this one part where you have to swoop down and pick up these enemies, which can only be killed by dropping them from high up into this particular spot, and I guess this one guy got real lucky, just started hugging the walls.
Please don't kill me. I'm nothing but pixels from 2006.
The egg has hatched.
Yes, but to a mere boy.
The people of this land must not learn the legends are true.
See, I haven't watched Aragon the movie since it first came out, so reliving these plot points this way is like a weird fever dream, the kind that results in years of therapy.
Do you ever wonder what Snoopy dreams about, Charlie Brown?
Oh, I don't know. Sometimes he dreams he's a famous writer, or sometimes a tennis pro.
Snoopy has seen the horrors of war, countless acts of bloodshed, hails of bullets, but none of this would be a surprise to you if you were a true fan and watched the Peanut special. I didn't know that village still had children in it, Charlie Brown. If you saw Snoopy versus the Red Baron on the store shelf, you'd probably think it was just another bargain bin ready licensed game, but I was surprised to find an unironically damn good air combat game. Seriously, the controls are super tight and nice. Flying your plane, getting into dogfights, and committing atrocities feels easy to pick up and play. It's really not something you expect from something like this. Playing this really took me back to Crimson Sky's High Road to Revenge on that original Xbox. I'm talking strikingly similar, especially with all these zeppelins in the sky.
Oh, the humanity!
Even more surprisingly, the game has this hub world, which is just the Peanuts neighborhood mid-autumn where you can soothe your PTSD. It's so nice and relaxing here, a moment's rest before you fly into a billboard in Mario 64 style and fly straight into the abyss, full stop into the meat grinder! You can also unlock new weapons and upgrades, and hey, what the hell are these prices?
Fuck you, Pigpen. Say goodbye to your military-industrial complex. They say when you die, you're met with a brilliant light, moving ever so closer to its cosmic luminescence as your light begins to fade away. This is the last thing you see.
It's over the hedge, bitches! Here we have the game! Hammy goes nuts, he just fucking loses it. So in 2006, we got a movie called Over the Hedge, which came with a game tie-in that came out with a ton of ports, and then just a few months later, we got this game, which was released on every major handheld at the time, and they're all 3 different unique versions. So if you were an Over the Hedge fan in 2006, you were really eaten, and then literally never again. I'm actually pretty sure this was the last Over the Hedge related thing ever released. It's kind of cool that they made this neat little 3D platformer from the ground up just for the PSP. It's very rare you see something like this. Usually there'd be some sort of console port on the PS2 or something, but no, this is it, baby. Finally, this is what the squirrels in that PSP commercial were waiting for. It's Portable Nut! It's your standard movie tie-in type platformer. You play as 3 different characters, a concept that would later be ripped off by a little-known indie game called Grand Theft Auto 5. You have Hammy, of course, Bruce Willis, Raccoon, and the Turtle, Franklin, from GTA 5. Honestly, he's the most fun to control because you can do this little Koopa shell attack and even hide in this little shell and bathe in human shit. Hammy can foam up on soda and coffee and slow down time, and Bruce Willis Raccoon can whack people with his trusty Last of Us 2 golf club. Part of the game has you sneaking around stealing as many munchies as you can find, much like the movie that this game is pretty much a direct sequel to. I'm a total slut for games where you can platform from the perspective of a tiny character bouncing around on everyday environments, and this game kind of taps into that itch, but everything about it is pretty basic, and the camera controls are wonky without a second analog stick. If you're really dying to relive 2006, maybe go for it. Or just play the direct sequel, X-Men Origins Wolverine. So legend goes, X-Men Origin Wolverine the movie and X-Men Origins Wolverine the game experienced some sort of Freaky Friday type beat where the movie ended up being atrocious and the game was uncharacteristically pretty good. Except this PSP version is not that supposed game. It's its own complete, different, unique version from all the other ports, so it's pretty up in the air whether this one will be good or not. Ladies and gentlemen, we've done it. It's Jack Human. And starting things off, the combat is very much the stylistic and okay, well, that's not a good sign. Okay, when the game actually decides to work, it's pretty decent. Wolverine can instantly snap to different enemies and turn them into diced tomatoes while you build your combos, and eventually you'll fill up your rage meter, which lets you slow down time, much like his brother Hammy. It doesn't last long, but when you use it, almost every hit will be an insta-kill, and since Wolverine is known to survive an atomic bomb, your health is always regenerating, but that's when the game introduces things like fire damage and toxic gas to keep things from being too easy. The game follows Wolverine back in the days when he was going on Black Eyed Peas Black Ops missions with Will.i.am. And basically the whole premise is Wolverine is being forced to experience the agony of the entire duration of 2009's X-Men Origins Wolverine in theaters May 1st, 2009.
This movie's gonna be one of the best movies of the summer.
This movie's gonna be one of the best movies of the summer.
Gameplay-wise, I love how over-the-top and fast the combat feels, but after that really fleeting initial wow factor, it gets super repetitive, enough to make my brain go smooth. Every section and level is really linear and straightforward, and aside from these very pointless stealth sections and the occasional boss fight, there's very little to keep things interesting. That being said, it definitely ranks among some of the better movie games for PSP, it just lacks variety. Like, maybe instead of playing as Wolverine, you should be hunting them with your uncle's 12 gauge. Or how about tossing a pigskin with your uncle who could have gone pro? Or maybe feeding that fat lard Tina. You could drink whole milk if you wanted to. This is Napoleon Dynamite the game on PSP. From hit low-budget indie film to PlayStation portable game, Napoleon Dynamite really did come a long way. This is one of those things you see and you might ask yourself why, but what I want to know is how. How could you possibly turn this kind of movie into a game? Well, by making a collection of minigames that also retell the events of the movie with an Angela Anaconda style. You know, they really did a good job at capturing the special do-it-yourself composition notebook arts and crafts look, but for the actual games themselves, they're nothing too special. A lot of them feel like something you'd find buried in Newgrounds. They're all very simple at best, pretty average and inoffensive, and at their worst, they're pretty bad. Of course, you have things like tetherball and dodgeball. Basically anything from the movie is a game here. Napoleon tying his action figure to string and throwing it out the bus? Game. Pinata scene? Game. Time machine? Game. Pedro shaving his hair? Everyone is here. So, if that sounds interesting to you, maybe give it a shot. I do find the style of the game very charming, but for the most part, you'd probably get more entertainment value out of just getting the actual movie for the PSP.
Johnny Knoxville, welcome to Jackass the Game.
Speaking of why does this thing exist, it's Jackass the Game. Don't try this at home, faithful viewer. Try this on your PSP. Fuck damn it. Wait, is this game actually... Am I having fun? Oh my god, Jackass the Game, much like Napoleon Dynamite, is another minigame collection. Like, they pretty much have the exact same dancing minigame, but the ones here I actually had a good time with. Exploding golf is surprisingly relaxing. You got surfing through the neighborhood on a trash can lid. I think I'm gonna be sick. There's one where you throw Steve-O's corpse down a mountain and puppeteer him like the hand of God. It's interesting. Some of the minigames come with multiple objectives, and it's kind of a lot like Tony Hawk Pro Skater, where you try to do them under a certain time limit, but your progress carries over with each attempt. And instead of, I don't know, collecting VHS tapes, you're trying to get yourself a bruised testicle. Fun fact, did you know gaming? Jackass is one of 2 games on PSP to feature a bruised testicle, the other being Megamind, the Blue Defender. A lot of these minigames have you trying to rack up the biggest hospital bill and just finding a way to damage these idiots as bad as possible. It's fun, they're nothing but meat puppets under your direct control. Remember, Johnny, you signed a contract with MTV. PSP Knoxville looks more like Mike Matei from Cinemassacre, and Steve-O looks like someone used a medieval torture rack on Sid from Toy Story, but honestly, that just means the developers did a damn good job at capturing their actual likeness. If you're a fan of Jackass or games where you can make white people do dumb things, this is a weird but often overlooked PSP game that I think is worth checking out. For now, faithful viewer, I've been trapped in a phantom prison, floating endlessly through a pocket dimension of licensed games on PSP. Will YungJunko ever escape? No!